What's going on, guys? The Broken Machine here. Today we're going to look at ways to improve your aim in Battlefield 1. Before we get into sensitivity, settings, snapping to targets and all that good stuff, one thing you can do to drastically improve your aim is to become more aware of where the center of your screen is. Knowing this will allow you to aim better and to react to targets much faster. Jump into a game, aim down sight, and there it is. That is your center. Do this every game until you just know where it is. At all times, you should be questioning where you are aiming and why. What are you hoping to achieve? One simple concept to help you improve your aim is to get into your head the idea that you are always aiming. If you're aiming at the floor, why? If you're aiming at the ceiling, why are you doing that? Aiming at spots where enemies are unlikely to be could lead to slower reactions when an enemy does appear on your screen. So constantly question, why are you aiming at a particular place? Maybe aiming for the building coming up would be a better idea than aiming at the grass in front of you. Let's use a common in-game situation you'll run into as an example. Take this building here. Enemy usually on the stairs, another one looking down. If you come aiming from afar with that expectation in mind, or even as you come around the corner, you will be much more likely to see them before they see you and be the first to start firing. If you come around aiming at the floor, you'll need to readjust your aim. The time it takes you to do that could result in your opponent seeing you first and taking you down quickly. Getting the idea that you're always aiming into your head isn't too much of a difficult task. The point is to make you more conscious of what you're doing. Now, what about settings? What should we change? Highly recommend turning Uniform Soldier Aiming on. What this essentially does is make all sights feel the same in terms of sensitivity. If you want your sensitivity while aiming down sights to be slower than hipfire, set your zoom sensitivity to 50%. Highly recommend this if you have come from Call of Duty. As for the main sensitivity, use what works for you and don't go changing it too often. There's no right or wrong here. 30 to 50 is the highest I would recommend for new players. It's much easier to stay on target on low sensitivity than high, but again, this is personal preference. Staying with one sensitivity for a long time will aid in building muscle memory. Keep that in mind before you go and change your sensitivity. Now let's explore aim in more detail and suggest ways in which we can improve. Aim can be broken down into 4 categories. There's tracking aim, where you track your opponent's movement and aim accordingly. Secondly, there's snapping to target, which is how quickly you can snap to your targets, your reflexes basically. Thirdly, there's pre-aiming. This is your crosshair placement. Are you ready for the next target? Can you predict where they will be? And lastly, a huge part of aim is gun control. These are all a part of good aim and not necessarily different. They're not really separate. But by breaking them down into categories, you can see which areas you may need to improve on and where your weaknesses may lie. How would we improve on each of them is fairly simple. Tracking aim is by far the easiest to improve on. If your sensitivity is too high or too low to follow a target, then you need to adjust these accordingly. For example, if you're playing at 60 sensitivity and constantly over-aiming or jittering about, then drop it by 10 to 50. Before changing though, do ask if it's you that's not tracking the target well, or is it the sensitivity being too low or too high? Often it's not really the sensitivity, it's just the player just not being very good at controlling the sticks. Their hand-to-eye coordination is not that great. Improving your tracking skills isn't just about sensitivity though, it's about learning the game mechanics and where players are likely to move. This requires observation on your part. Take note on how players move, how fast they run on screen, how quick they go from crouching to standing. Visualize it as you aim. Think, where would they move next? Use that knowledge to help you aim better and be more precise. If you're firing at someone near a door, they'll likely rush to it to escape. Or if they're running to one side of the screen, are they heading to a nearby building? Probably. Anticipate their moves and aim accordingly. This is definitely one of those things that requires observation on your part, something you just have to learn by doing it. Basically though, you want to be trying to get into their head, think where they may move next and just aim, just do it. Of course, high skilled players can be unpredictable, but the basics still apply. Engaging and beating high skilled players is a massive topic I'll attempt to cover in future videos. Now let's move on to snapping aim. This is perhaps a more difficult skill to learn. Best practice is to snap for the waist or upper body. Snapping to heads is only really necessary for close quarter engagements or longer ranges with a sniper rifle. Snapping to targets requires confidence, and confidence is key to good aim, but so is being chill. Just chill, just aim, just do it. Try not to think too much. Personally, I find when I try to think too much about it, I aim worse. But if I just do it, I just let my mind try and figure it out, and I just do it, I'm usually much better at aiming. Maybe that'll work for you. Try it out. Now, moving on to the third component of good aim, pre-aiming. Pre-aiming is when you aim down your sights in anticipation of where the enemy may be. Pre-aiming can put you at a huge advantage over your opponent. Basically, you'll have the accuracy bonus of aiming down sights, more if you stand still, but if you pre-aim at the wrong spots, you may not see someone on the floor or in a different part of the room. Pre-aiming is great for open areas, or if you're not sure where the enemy is, or what the area beyond looks like as well. It's also a great technique to gain map knowledge before making your moves. Use it wisely. But do remember, be aware of potential blind spots. How close you aim to corners or walls depends on how quickly you think your reactions are. The width of an enemy is a good place to start. Now let's move on to the last part about aiming, gun control. We'll keep it basic for this video. The way I prefer to think of it is, how many bullets do I need for a kill, and try to fire that many. A good site to use to find out all this information quickly is Simfic.com. Look at the weapons you commonly use, the damage multipliers in game, and try to focus on firing enough bullets to do 100 damage. Now lastly, how do we counter recoil? To counter recoil with a controller, push forward on the analog stick, but not too much, just be easy on it. Don't make the mistake of trying to control the recoil for the entire magazine. I see a lot of players doing this, a lot of new players. Don't do this. Basically, if you haven't dropped your target by 10 bullets, you need to readjust. Something's wrong. In general, tap for headshots, 3 to 5 bursts for most other situations, and give your weapon a moment to reset itself. We could go into all the specific details on how each and every weapon works, but for now, focus on firing 7 bullets max in one burst. If your target isn't down by 10 bullets, something's wrong, readjust. One question I get asked a lot is how to be accurate when sniping with a controller. Highly recommend you watch my sniping guide on that one, but for this one good tip, one good technique actually, that I find really helps is to try to drift the reticle over the target and then fire, rather than trying to be too accurate. What I find is, personally, if I try to be too accurate with a sniper rifle, my aim just goes terrible, so I like to try and drift over the target. It's a pretty good technique for close to medium range engagements. At long ranges though, just aim for the head if they're stood still, and aim ahead if the target is running, and then fire when necessary. Other good tips: stand still for the accuracy bonus. If it takes too long to aim and adjust for the head, then don't. Headshot multipliers do help of course, but not if it takes an extra half a second to adjust for the head. What you really should be doing is trying to increase your damage per second. If it takes too long to get the headshot, then don't, it's not worth it. 5 bullets to the torso in half a second is better than half a second of adjusting your aim for the head. Try and think about stuff like that. For more tips, check out my settings guide, sniper guide, and beginner tips videos as well. We will be looking at this topic in more detail in the future, but for now, just keeping it basic. Thanks for watching guys, please drop a rating and I'll see you soon. Until next time, take it easy.